Hello viewers, welcome to our Unity Android game development channel. Today is our episode number 4 of how to create a 2D game with Unity 3D engine. In the previous episode, we learned about basic 2D physics of Unity engine. We learned about rigid body, we learned about collider, how to detect collisions, we learned about triggers, we learned about box colliders, circle colliders. If you miss the previous episode, the link is given below in the description, and you can find the full course in the full course link in the description below. Now let's get started. In today's lesson or episode, we will learn to fly our bird or flap our bird with a C# script. In short, we will create our first C# script of our game Box Flappy. Let's get a flashback of yesterday's lesson or episode number 3. See, our bird is falling below or falling down. Let's zoom it in. Because of the gravity, because of this rigid body 2D component, and it is stopping here because our walls has box collider attaching to it, and our bird has a circle collider attaching to it. And we learned an important thing to detect collision, that one of the game objects must have the rigid body 2D component attached to it. Now we will create our first script, C# script. Let's call it bird flap. Now our script will be opened in the monodevelop. Okay, our first C# script has two default functions included in it. By default, Unity create these two functions, start, update. Start function basically runs once or runs first time if when the game object is instantiated into the scene. This script, if we attach the script to our bird and we run our game, then the start function will run only once at the beginning of our game. Update is called once per frame. That means if there is 60 frames in 1 second, this update function will be called 60 times. There are also very default functions of Unity. Those are called automatically from the game, and one of them is FixedUpdate. Now, why FixedUpdate? I will be using FixedUpdate, and if you have any question about why I am using FixedUpdate, you will get the answer eventually. Now let's get started our coding. We'll be needing a variable to access our animator component of our bird, private animator. Let's call it bird animation. We will be needing another component of rigid body 2D. Let's call it rigid 2D. We will need couple of boolean variables, private bool flapped. Is alive will be used to check our bird is alive or not, and flap will be checked our user has touched the screen or not. Whenever our user will touch the screen, we'll set the flap variable to 0. We'll set the variable to true, as this is a boolean variable. I made it public because we will be needing to access this variable externally from this script. So a start function will be used to initialize this. Will be at first true, and our bird flapping will be off, false. If our bird is alive, then I forgot to mention one thing, that FixedUpdate is not mandatorily called in every frame, but update is called in every frame. FixedUpdate may not be called in every frame. Okay, is alive. Actually, I am not habituated to write code like this. I want to see the curly braces up in this format, but MonoDevelop does this to me. So this is quite embarrassing to me. I will change the setting from here, clicking our solution name, go to options, C# format, edit. If you are okay with that format, you can skip this part, but if you are like me, then you can follow these steps. Go to the braces category, from braces, see here statements. We will get a preview here. End of line, I will make it next line. Now see, it is in my desired format. I need to change one more thing, place else on new line. It is saying to put the else always in the same line. I am also not familiar or not habituated with this format. I am habituated with this always new line format. Now else if else is in the new lines. Okay, our solution is saved. So no more bothering. If our bird is alive, what should we do? Now that our bird is falling down, it will not only falling down, but also the bird will move forward. That means to the x direction it will automatically fly, to the positive x direction to the right wall, and for the left wall to the negative x direction. And for flapping our bird will fly to the up direction of the y axis. Now let's see how can we do this through our code. Let's take vector3 temp transform dot position. See, what is this transform? This lowercase transform actually indicates to this transform component. This lowercase transform automatically give us, or it is automatically initialized to the transform component of its attached script object. As our bird flap script is attached to this game object, this transform variable or this transform lowercase transform will save this transform component automatically in the runtime of our code. So from that we can access our position, save it to a temporary variable, and access to the x and increase it time dot delta time. This is a very small time, or this is a very small floating point number, and again transform dot position is equals to temporary variable. Now why did I do it? Why did I take a temporary variable? Because this transform dot position, this position variable is a read only variable. You can only read it, you cannot change it by directly accessing the position. We need to save the position to a temporary variable, then change the components and again assign it to the transform dot position. Now if our user has touched the screen, that means our bird is flapping. Our bird is flapped. We'll use the rigid body 2D component, that is rigid 2D, and its velocity attribute to be set to vector2 0f 3f. Now what is this? The x axis has 0 and the y axis has 3 value. Whenever our users are touching the screen, the bird will go upward. That means we have to increase the y axis value to the positive direction, and every time our user is touching the screen, our bird has a velocity of 3 unit to the y direction or to the upward y direction. And also we will be needing this component, bird animation. Let's call it bird animation dot remember from the previous episodes we created the trigger. Come to this point, click on the blue bird, go to the animator. We had two trigger variables, one is flap, one is die. So whenever our bird is in idle mode, dot set trigger, and our user has touched the screen, like this, will trigger the bird to flap. This is a string. We are directly calling this string from setting the trigger to our flap, and our bird will start flapping whenever the variable is set to true. Now this is an important part, that rigid 2D bird animation is not initialized yet. How can we initialize them? There are various ways we can initialize them. There is a function called GetComponent. Bird animation is an animator type component. So we have to get component animator. The attached game object, if the attached game object has animator component, it will give us the animator component and initialize the bird animation with it. Similarly, rigid 2D, get component rigid body 2D. Now whenever we run our code or run our program, these variables will be initialized. Now let me show you a bad example, a bad code. What is a bad code? We will not use any variable. We will directly get component rigid body 2D dot velocity. Same as you can also get component animator dot set trigger. Why didn't I do it, or why shouldn't we do it? Because this get component operation is very costly and it affects the running time greatly. You won't see the difference, or you won't understand the difference in this game because there is only one bird here with a rigid body component and only one bird flag script. Just imagine there are hundreds of birds in your scene and they all have this script and they are all accessing this get component rigid body 2D function in every frame or in every 2 or 3 frames, as this is a fixed update. What if there is no fixed update in your game? You used update. What will happen? Every second hundreds of game objects are accessing this rigid body get component rigid body function. This will drastically decrease the efficiency of your code. It will increase and it will affect your game, and it will result to a crash of your game. This is a very bad example of Unity C# coding. We will never do it. We will always cache our variable like this. Even I have a more efficient way. Now let's see what is the more efficient way. See, in the component bird flag we are only seeing the is alive, because is alive is public. We can show the private variables here too. Just add serialize field Now observe bird animation rigid 2D. The two variables are showing in the component. This is animator component and this is a rigid body 2D component. I will simply drag our bluebird game object and drop here. It will automatically get the animator component and initialize the bird animation value to the animator component. Again I will simply drag the bluebird component, bluebird game object, excuse me, and it will automatically attach the rigid body 2D or initialize our rigid 2D variable to rigid body 2D component. This is even more efficient, and this is the most used and efficient way to access components. Do not forget to hit apply. So our apply worked, and this we have learned a very efficient way to get the component. Now flap the bird, a new function flapped will be set to true. Whenever our user is touching the screen, we'll call this flap the bird function, and our flapped variable will be set to true, and our bird will start flapping. Now let's see till now. Is our code is working or not? See, our bird is not only falling down, it is going forward. Now you should observe a thing, that our bird is moving very slowly. How can we increase this factor? Simply we can multiply our time.delta time, let's say 3f. As our time.delta time is a floating point number, our position is also a our position x is also a floating point number, we must indicate this number to floating point. Now let's observe. See, it is more faster, it is more, the x is increasing more than before. Now I will do another thing. I will take two more floating point variables, float speed to 3f, private float bounce to 3f, and this will be speed, this will be bounce. This is also a good practice. Now I can change from here. If I can regulate the variable to check which value is suitable for us or suitable for a player to play the game. Now we'll call the flap the bird function whenever our user touch the screen. I will not use any touch component or any touching methodology, touching tools, touch inputs in our game. Rather, I will show you a clever way to detect touch on the screen. First, I need a button. In the hierarchy panel, we'll create a UI button. Please observe this. A button is always contained in a canvas game object in a canvas element. So canvas is automatically created and the button is set as a child of it. And also event system is added. Canvas nothing is showing here, so we can do this like that. Select the canvas, take the mouse cursor here and simply press F in your keyboard. So our canvas, let's make it screen space camera. Our rendering camera, we have a rendering camera, main camera, again it's gone. By pressing F you can focus on it. Our canvas scaler, by selecting this attribute scale with screen size, you can create a responsive design which will support any resolution or any mobile device. Scale with screen resolution. Delete the text component. Let's rename the button, call it flap button. I will simply the whole screen will get the button. $798. Let's make it 800. 800 by 1278. There's nothing. See the 00. We will press the alter button. Press the alter button in your keyboard and make the button stretch. This will always automatically stretch the button to fit the screen size. Now the preview is not updating here. Why the preview is not updating here? Because the sorting layer, our canvas is in the default sorting layer, our environment, our walls is in the wall sorting layer, our bluebird is a bird layer, but default is the lowest layer. Because for this reason we are not seeing the button here. Again, sorting layer, we'll add a sorting layer and let's call it canvas and set it to canvas. See, we can see the button, the full button stretching to the screen. Now I will make this button disappear. How? Just watch. In the flap button, in the image component, go to the color and make the alpha channel to 0. What just happened? I made the opacity to 0. The button is still in the screen, but we are not seeing this because of opacity. Now if our user will press the screen, actually he will press a button, but he will think that he is touching the screen. So this is a great idea. You can thank me later by subscribing to our channel because of this technique. Just joking. If you like this tutorial, if you're liking our components, our learning strategies, please subscribe to our channel to get latest updates. Okay, now let's head back to the code. Flapbird will assign the button. There is the button script. The button script has an on click attribute. Add the on click. The game object, Bluebird is the game object that is containing the bird flap script, which has the flap the bird function. So the Bluebird is containing, I drag and drop it to this point, no function. See, we can see the bird flap here, and we can see our no functions like flap the bird. Again, to access externally this function, we need to set the attribute to public. Bird flap the bird. Yes, now there is a flap the bird. We have attached flap the bird. Okay, what just happened? See, Bluebird flapping, there is a transition from idle to Bluebird flapping. It is always flapping. What did I miss? Yes, this has I miss. The flap value is set to false. Now let's check. So this is it. We have successfully flapped our bird. Now in the next video, on the next episode, we will flap the bird and our bird will go forward, and will also, after touching the right wall, it will go backward and touch the left wall too, and again it will go forward and touch the right wall, so on. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching the video. Please do not forget to subscribe our channel to get the latest updates. Please do like our video. Do not forget to leave a comment if you do not understand anything. We will respond as soon as possible.